I've been told that some of you are feeling a little cold. A little cold for you, is it? Funny that. I thought that Romans, true Romans that is, always felt the sons of Attila on their skin wherever they went. Can you feel it? Or perhaps you'd rather feel the warm blood of Mars in your veins. Look at these standards, look at them. As legionaries, you are blessed with the right to march beneath these symbols. Symbols that tell the gods where to look to see great deeds and all that. They will have their eyes trained on them as we march from here to the deepest, darkest depths of who knows where and back again, killing every belligerent German we see along the way. That is your destiny. And your duty. The Senate have paid for it already, you know, so there's even a rather large commercial aspect to consider. They expect to get what they paid for, like any of us would, and like I do also. What is it they want? They want there to be one order in this world. Our order, your order, the Roman order I mean, of course. Given what lies out there, might as well already be the case. But they are insisting on a clean victory. Funny how they obsess over that, these political addicts. Hypocritical even, given the edge they'll call a majority and all that. So let's carry on. And if you've not a pious bone in your body, at least remember, it only gets warmer from here. Hello there and welcome to Fields of Mars episode 60. So last time we were securing ourselves in the east, and that included raising the final settlement of Britannia, removing that faction from the game. We were also attacking Mazan. We did a little battle when we took their final settlement. We left it to rebel and they actually came back, so we had to deal with them again later on. We took Harmosia in our new campaign to go and capture all of Macran's territory. We also started a war with the Alamans, or they started a war with us, and we took Rotomegas, which allowed us to win the minor victory in the campaign. We ended up destroying Bazoon's territory to just take them off our mind, and now we're going to focus entirely on Macran there. And finally, we saw the Angles trying to take Camalodunum and utterly failing. While all that other stuff's been going on, there's also been a war in Africa that we haven't really participated in, where our various puppet states and allies are fighting the Garamantian kingdom. And now we're finally going to help out a little bit with this little aside battle where I'm going to send 2 fleets to attack Ptolemaeus. Inside they've got a small, pretty much dead army and their garrison also damaged, probably by famine or something like that. So I do, in theory, lack the melee marines to go and take a town like this, but of course we're going to try and use the tactic that I think I showed earlier in the campaign at some point, the one where you try and take a city mainly from the sea without landing units. First we'll use our siege ships to destroy enemy towers. That will allow the rest of our fleet to effectively sail up right to the landing zones, but not actually land. That will allow us to use the infinite ammo on many of our ranged ships to just sit here and gradually kill everything that comes to defend these landing zones, and there's not much the enemy can do. They lack ranged units themselves, so all they can do is hope that I land, but I'm not going to, so I'll just sit here micromanaging what sorts of arrows I'm using just for my own amusement. And once you run out of ammo, you just press the get more ammo button, you get more ammo and you can keep going. So all we need to do is make sure we have a flow of targets to keep shooting, and this should be easy enough. You can see a few guys running around getting hit by bolts, but curiously, some dead horses were starting to appear here. It seems that the enemy have somehow hidden a unit of cavalry right in front of me in the open, just in the road, so no idea how that's happening. I guess these ships have very bad land spotting range or something, so they can't notice those guys in front of them. That's annoying, but at least these other guys are making themselves more obvious, doing this weird undulating thing right in front of us. They want to fight our boat in melee, but it's just not happening for them, so we're going to have to shoot them. seems pretty easy for us, and the enemy aren't going to make it any harder by the looks of things. Eventually this unit does actually get bored of having all of its men killed and tries to run somewhere else, but it doesn't run away. They just start running up and down in front of the ships, which may ever so slightly extend their lifespan, since some of the shots might miss now, but obviously not going to have any major impact. We're going to clear those landing zones right out. Now lots of enemy units went to go and stand on the wall, which was an okay decision because this particular part of the wall was mostly indestructible, so I couldn't kill them very well while they were up here. It's hard to shoot the crossbows up here as well since they're just about out of range. So I'm just going to have to sit here and use my siege ships to attack them, and eventually we'll manage to get them off of that position. Another tactic you can use during a battle like this is to land a unit of marines just to see if the enemy react to it, and in this case they did. They sent some cav to counter-attack, and that of course brings those cav from wherever they were into the range of my crossbow ships, so gives us even more targets to hit. So they're going to start losing men very quickly. They did actually reach my marines, and that's not a very good engagement for us, but our missile support is going to wipe everything out. Although that said, we did encounter this problem. One enemy cavalryman came to fight with my marines and died pretty fast, so that was fine. But then my ships just thought, you know what, I've already loaded my crossbow, I'm going to fire it at someone, and they just shot the hell out of my unit and completely destroyed it. That's a glitch I've seen with lots of ranged ships. They often fire at their previous target, like one more volley after you tell them to stop. You'll see siege ships doing it, like firing at destroyed towers and things, just because they remember their old target and can't stop firing for whatever reason. But anyway, so here you can see I'm using my siege ships to level stuff up on the walls. Can't destroy the walls as I said, but we can still get some kills like that. And eventually I'm going to pull everyone off the wall by sending in a couple of marine units to just dance around inside the town. That aggroes everything onto us, and now we just run away, running right back to the landing zone, where of course the crossbow ships are just waiting for new targets to come in, and now those enemy units are going to be annihilated by storms of bolts. Very easy indeed, and you can see from the balance bar we've pretty much leveled the entire garrison of this city. We just need to hunt down the last couple of men who are apparently alive. You can use the balance bar to tell you how many enemy troops are alive, so you can guess how many units in total there are and stuff like that, so you can help with your own search. Anyway, we eventually defeated a few tribesmen, found that they had a general sitting near the centre of the town, started hitting them with some siege ships. They didn't seem to mind this, they just took it for a while, then thought, you know what, this battle hasn't gone very well. They left the city. That's a decisive victory for us, so our navy has very easily captured the whole place. This is a very exploitative tactic, and I don't really like using it, but there you go, maybe you can use that at home. No longer shall there be enemies of Rome in Arabia, for all that might have remembered the offences Rome committed against their families are dead. At least Verus would have enslaved them. The Senate's self-serving order to allow Legate Costa to lead the theatre is one I have followed right into my own personal hell. Kill the people or kill him. These are the options he gives his commanders very openly. Legate Pollio wrote to me to calm my nerves on this topic. He says that Costa leads because he is rich, and he is rich because he transferred the wealth of the peoples he exterminated to his own estate. We are, Pollio claims, allowed to ignore him by virtues of the orders of the late Magister. I don't think anyone is listening to the orders of the current Magister even. We did lose a few boats to gain this victory due to the weakness of the marines we were landing to bait the enemy, and due to the bloodthirsty nature of our own men, as we saw. As for what to do with the city, I kind of wanted to liberate something here. That would have been the best option. The second best option will be to occupy. We certainly don't want to destroy this place or anything, because we're supposed to be essentially restoring Roman rule in the area, so we don't want to do anything drastic. So now I'm going to have to sit in there with my fleet and just see how that goes. Now you may have noted earlier in the episode that we are currently besieging Vesantia with Eutropius the Younger, and this caused the Alamans to finally show their hand. They've got two nearby armies that come to attack him. This is a refreshing change from the 4 or 5 armies that usually appear, but this may only be the beginning. Eutropius just leaves the siege, goes back to our territory, and they do not pursue. And further to the northwest, they also don't attack us, but they do some agent spam, so that's going to waste my time. But no actual actions from them. They probably could have taken back one of my settlements if they really tried over there. Meanwhile, at the exact opposite end of the map, we are putting the pressure onto Makran now. This is their biggest city, and they've got a stack inside, but we've got this team here. It's General Costa, Anicius the Younger, and Septimus the Younger, all working together here to just completely overwhelm the enemy. You can see the balance bar super far in our favour, since even though the enemy had tons of troops, ours are just generally better, so we get in without much fuss there, and we'll take this place since I am going to occupy all of this territory. Now, with this city taken, we're actually now in the bottom right hand corner of the map. You can't go any further to the east. Out there somewhere presumably is India, but they are not concerned with the affairs of Europe for the purposes of this campaign, so we can just completely ignore that direction. Now we'll need to move north in order to start clearing up other enemy provinces along the edge of the map, and once that's done, we're going to be in a super safe position. Now we're checking in with Verus at Scoopy, our main legionary base, where we can now recruit Evocati cohort and Praetorian cohort. Evocati are just better legionaries and Praetorians are better Evocati. So altogether it makes these guys a very expensive but extremely high stats unit, probably the best melee unit in the game. We can also recruit Praetorian cavalry as a regular unit as opposed to just generals' bodyguards, and a shock version of it, the Praetorian Lancers. So we'll get some of those guys going as well, and hopefully at some point find a way to see that super late game army in action. So now we need to look back to the Alaman front and see if we can do anything against them. Now that they've got a few of their armies out in the open, we can start trying to do some damage. Here I'm going to fiddle around to get our two Senate armies into position to attack this one Alaman force. It's just fortified itself on the other side of a river. I was just about able to get that fight going, but they ran away and we can't pursue them there. So that's unfortunate. At least we now know what they have, and their army wasn't too special. It wasn't completely spamming Germanic Spearmasters, which is good because they just outclass so much of our stuff. We do have Anicius Piso there with his legionary army, so hopefully we can get him to take down some Alaman stacks and save the lives of all of our terrible troops elsewhere. Now the Angles appear to be setting themselves up for attacks on Britannia. They've got troops coming towards Aboracum right now. I'm deploying my little garrison blob of archers into that city to defend the walls in case they do attack, and we can recruit some more stuff just in case we need it later on. Now I want to go back to attacking Vesontio. We can actually attack it with 3 armies right now because we've got Eutropius the Younger, Vitellius, and one of our minor Senate leaders with some reserve troops who can all get into the area thanks to their big movement. So I'm going to start this siege right here and then just leave that going for a second. The question is, what can we do against the 2 armies? I noticed that we can get both Vitellius and Eutropius together here to attack just head on against that first army, and I don't think the first army is in reinforcement range of the second, so that would be an overwhelming advantage for us. The enemy runs away as a result of that, and now we're just going to do a bit of fiddling around. It took a long time to get all this movement sorted out, but long story short, both armies retreated, but we could then catch up to them and keep fighting. So now we get situations like this. The enemy thoroughly overwhelmed by our strength. I actually wasn't quite sure why the balance bar was so far in our favour there, considering that the enemy units are pretty decent. Maybe they just didn't spam enough Germanic Spearmasters either. It seems the Alamans are now going for more balanced compositions, which is going to work against them. So with that done, I could just about shuffle along to do the same thing to the second army, which is absolutely perfect. So suddenly the first 2 armies that came anywhere near us have just been annihilated. That's going to be a massive moral victory for us, and a strategic one if the enemy don't actually have 10 stacks, since killing 2 of 10 doesn't make much difference, but if it's 2 of say 3, then this front line is going to be ours. Now the question was, how do I go about attacking Vesontio? Do I do it with just the 2 armies in reinforcement range now, or do I add Eutropius in as well? But because the balance bar was so far in our favour with just the 2, I thought what we could do here is have Eutropius just go and take the next place over. That will mean we can really quickly complete this province and exploit the fact we've just removed the Alaman armies in the area. There wasn't much of a garrison there, so we can just take it pretty much without losses right away. And now we'll sit in it, and it can be our forward base for Eutropius. We'll see if the Alamans try to counter-attack. We actually can't take Vesontio right now because we don't have any siege weapons in our armies, so we need to keep that siege going for a bit to make some ladders. Then it will just be an auto-resolve to finish it off, an even easier one than we have now, since the ladders contribute to the bounce bar as well. It's now going to be down to the Alamans to try and stop me here. Are they going to have have 5 stacks that will just appear and challenge these very dominant moves we're making. First, they want a little battle out here in the forest once again. A winnable fight by the looks of things, but it's not a fight that would gain us anything, so this is just one of those cases where I thought we might as well run away, because if we do want to fight that army, we can probably fight it on more favourable terms somewhere else, and even if we did fight and win, it doesn't gain us anything in the short term. Now the Angle armies are going to make their attacks. First, they do lay siege to Aboracum with our men inside, but they also have 2 armies coming now for Camalodunum. One of them lands, so it's going to be a regular siege attack from them, with then the fleet reinforcing and landing at the same time. So that's going to be a particularly difficult setup to defend against, and the balance bar seems to agree, but we need to fight because we need to do as much damage to them as possible to make sure this little invasion can't spiral out of control. Swords blessed by Mars, armour marked by 1,000 stopped blows and painted in barbarian blood, walls built of the bones our grandfathers and great-grandfathers hewed from those who would defile our homes. These are the weapons we have. You wish that there was hope or an excuse to flee? I give you neither. We have always lived together, and we have always fought together. If this is the end, then we shall die together. Those barbarians will not find their easy spoils. They will see the still burning piles of their dead kin, and the grinning faces of we Britannian men, teeth dripping with blood, gods standing at our shoulders, just waiting to put another notch on our blades. Form up for battle, mark the lines in the ground, and fight until you see a foe no more. At sea, I could use the couple of ships I had, including an admiral's ship, to go and board some enemy transports to take them down with the seasickness thing, although I'm not sure the Angles actually get seasickness. But anyway, I'm going to board their general's ship, and over here we're boarding the elite Nordic warriors, and that's not really going to work so well, because I've only got a few light marines, and the enemy's infantry are so heavy and have such high stats that even if they were seasick, that's going to be a challenge at the best of times. Now, the enemy are attacking our garrison in the town, of course, with a few dogs and cavalry just to start things off while the rest of their men come in. My attack on those Nordic warriors failed, as I implied, but our men actually also failed to get back to their own ship after giving up, and they just committed suicide, so that wasn't terribly helpful. Meanwhile, the fight against their general was going much better. Our heavier marines were slowly working their way through the enemy general's ship, and he was killed in that engagement, although their general on land is the one we really need to get to make any difference here. As you can see, the grinds are going to start, and we're just going to have our infantry fight the enemy as they come through these choke points towards the victory point. No real strategy here, other than the usual scout equite antics, killing a few ranged units, then trying to do rear attacks on the blobs. Unfortunately, the enemy weren't having it today. You can see these Nordic spears, who are quite a low-level unit, and I thought might rout. Actually, they just turned right around and started attacking our cavalry, so that's not very useful, and the only routing going on is from our own troops routing forwards into the enemy, so they're probably going to shatter because of that as well. We did manage to catch one more enemy unit at sea before everything landed. This time our light marines will do better against these pikes fighting in melee without their pikes, so that's nice. So more pikes landed. I tried to hit them with my heavier marines after I landed them, but I couldn't quite get to them before they formed up into a phalanx, so we're going to have to get out of there now, which is a tiny bit difficult. The pikes do lots of stun locking, so our men do often just forget to run away. Eventually they work out how to do it and will be free from that engagement. We need to use our Admiral's Marines there to support the main engagement, but it's looking like a lost cause. We are just losing everything on those front lines, and the enemy still have so much left, and their infantry is all better quality than ours. Here my scout equites ran into some trouble when I tried to attack some javelineers. They skirmished back into some spearmen. We took losses there, and by the time I started retreating from that, it was essentially over for those units. My marines did manage to rear attack a lower level spear unit here, and they are going to be able to defeat that unit in that melee. They almost got surrounded when those elite warriors considered coming for the rear attack, but they wanted to go back to the queue to attack the victory point, so that's going to give us an opportunity to potentially defeat one more full unit. just by attacking that spear unit as it routes as well, and we needed to chase them as they routed because some pikes were slowly creeping up behind us. As you can see, our Admiral's Marines are now trapped there, and they are finally going to be attacked from all sides as the enemy start realizing what's going on here. Plus the rest of our army is pretty much dead. We soon see a chain rout and the battle ends in a close defeat. Everything on our side will go since it was a settlement defense, but did we manage to inflict some full unit damage on the enemy that they can't replenish? Here we can see we got a few units in the first army, none of the quality units, really just taking down the lesser ones, but that's still a little bit useful. In the second army, disappointing, we only got their general who will just respawn. The rest of the units got away with it, even when we were boarding them. That's a little bit disappointing, but as we see, the enemy don't occupy or raise the settlement. The annoying choice is they sack it and then they split up, with one army going back towards the mainland there. So that actually isn't the worst result ever. We're still going to have to contend with this army because we don't know where it's going to go and what it's going to do next, and we'll need to contend with this little siege here. But looking over the units, I think we're okay. We've just got loads of archers essentially from our first army there, and then the garrison army supporting has not that many units, but I thought that's probably enough to resist a settlement assault. Maybe we can't win the sally, but we would be able to win a defense. So I'm just going to leave that siege going and see if they go for an attack where we might have an advantage there.
Disgraceful. The Senate is too proud of their efforts barring the doors to see the windows are still open. The birthplace of Constans, of the new empire, is it not at all sacred? Let me tell you, I would have ordered a grand fleet patrol that coast day and night so that all Britannians could know that they have already done their part. Now the reports of their deaths are barely audible over the echoing laughs of the Senate. They take back more powers by the day, and Eutropius is carried along like driftwood because they tell him he's such a good little boy for having his men win battles for him. This is what Septimus was afraid of. It happened exactly as he predicted, and now Rome is slipping back into a rule of weakness. We'll have none of it. We'll make sure all we did was worthwhile.
Now that we've had some time to make some ladders at Versantio, we'll come back to this battle. Nice and easy to auto-resolve. I guess all three of our armies there will pile over those ladders and take out the garrison. So with that done, we've now taken the whole province of Maximus Sequinorum, it's called something like that. One of the two Roman provinces I needed to take back from the Alamans to get all of Rome's old borders restored, the other one being Belgica to the north. So there we go, that was easy enough, and we've even got forces available that can start work on Belgica right now. I realise that we can send Eutropius to the north to start the next siege we'll need to do. I still don't have the catapult, so I can't go right in, even though it's really easy in terms of an auto-resolve, so there is going to be a bit of a delay and a chance for the Alamans to counter-attack. What I can do here is put Vitellius in between these two settlements, so if there's a battle at either of them during the end turn sequence, he'll be able to help out, so that will be rather nice. Now I need to decide what to do with Anicius Piso here. I could go on the offensive with him as well, but the other thought in my mind is whether I should take out this army down to the south, or go to the northwest and go back to Britannia to defend against the Alamans. In the end, I just put off the decision for a bit and put Anicius just outside of the settlement he's already in, but to the northwest, so he'll have a tiny bit more range to move into Britannia next turn if he needs to, but he's also near the front line in case more Alamans appear from the east, which is a very real possibility right now because we just don't know what sort of stuff they have out there, and we would assume at this point that they still have plenty more armies given what we've seen before. Now, back over in the east, our attacks can just continue, and for whatever reason, we're still not seeing much resistance from Macran. I guess all their armies are just gone, or maybe the AI has just finally given up on those cheats. It just doesn't want to spam armies against us anymore. So we're going to spam against them. I'm going to use Septimus and Costa here to overwhelm the small garrison at that settlement Fra, and we've also got Anicius the Younger, who I could use in this assault. but he's also quite useful to have over to the west in order to both defend against potential attacks that we don't expect and to hold down public order, because it's not exactly stable all over the place. Anyway, this proves to be a nice easy auto-resolve, and we're going to go for the Occupy here. I think this completes another province for us, the province of Makran, and of course that means our borders are now going to be shorter and shorter because the edge of the map is now so much of our border. Now back to the Angles' turn. Their army next to Camalodunum goes back into the sea, then turns round and makes a naval assault against the settlement, so a curious twist there. I think that defence might have actually had something to it, however I didn't feel like fighting it, and there's always the possibility that they're just going to sack it, which against a settlement that's already just been sacked doesn't make an enormous difference, and fortunately that is exactly what happened. So really nothing happened at all there, but we will have to now wait some time to respawn our garrison. It would help if we could have armies over there to defend against this happening again. We do know the Angles have more armies in the area. First though, we're going to close out this episode with a little look at this battle. We can see the Garamantians are attacking the Eastern Roman separatists near Ptolemais, and my half-dead garrison has the opportunity to come and join the battle, so I thought I might as well. Maybe we can tip the balance and make our side win, because stopping those Garamantians will help us out as well. The problem will be, of course, that we have to rely on our allies to do most of the work in this battle, and they've started things pretty badly, setting their defensive position downhill from the enemy, so they're going to be at a disadvantage the whole time now. The enemy did have the ranged advantage, but they didn't use it, so that's nice. And as the two sides close, we can see from these red lines how the allied AI is targeting the enemies as they come in, and you can get some insight here into how these melee blobs form and why so many units charge into the backs of units on their own sides. It seems to be that they just target the first thing they see with the vast majority of their army, and that's why the line quickly folds in on itself and turns into a blob, which seems to happen in most battles. But anyway, as for our forces, we get attacked just by this one unit of cav off to the left. I'm going to have 2 units of the Legio do a stationary testudo to defend against the cav. Now we can surround them with the other units, using a few darts to weaken them as well, and now we'll get a fairly complete surround. Slowly we'll kill them in that fight. Those cav aren't all that bad, so it'll take a while. We just need our allies to hold until we can come and help them out, and that's not going to be a massively guaranteed thing, because the troops on the allied side are all pretty bad, just desert levied spears, and many of them are being outflanked as well, and of course they're fighting uphill. Eventually we do get into position to finally come and support the main bit of fighting. There go some darts to hit some tribesmen. Now we'll rear attack them, and I've got another unit chasing away the enemy's slingers. But looks like many of the units from our allies are now considering leaving the battle. They're doing okay, they're certainly getting kills against the enemy, but the lack of morale is going to be a problem by the looks of things. Up here where we're helping out, it's the same issue. We're doing this rear attack and it's probably going to kill lots of enemies, but it's killing them too slowly, and the battle might be over before this has a major effect. One unit that I left behind in order to defeat the routed elements of that cav unit from the start got attacked by the enemy's general. They got annihilated. Then the general came to rear attack the guys I have rear attacking the infantry, and now that's going to be a disaster for all of the stuff that I have in this fight. Those 2 units will just be annihilated. At around the same time, our allies are starting to lose their units. We did at least get their slingers into a melee over here far from the battle, so that's going to go well. But by the time we defeated them in that melee, we can look back and see that the rest of the battle has been completely lost. Our allied chain routed, and the vast majority of their army was killed in the rout. So that was pretty bad for us, obviously. I tried to escape with our final unit, but the enemy were able to catch up with their cav and kill some of these guys. So now our garrison is going to be pretty much dead as well. Fortunately, the enemy can't utilize this to go and take the city, since I have the navy there to act as garrison. And one upside to the enemy's army chasing my garrison unit is that it probably allowed some of our allies to escape from that route, since we drew the enemy over to the other side of the battlefield for a while. So maybe that served some purpose. But ultimately, that battle's not going to have a massive impact on things anyway, so we'll get back into the main meat of the action next time. The Alaman plan, whatever it might have been, had surely failed. They likely did not factor in the arrival of additional troops from Britannia and Iberia to bolster Rome's border force. These reinforcements went from securing the lines to pushing them forwards into areas Romans had not controlled in many decades. The Alaman vanguard was wiped aside with the same ease with which eastern armies were falling to the advance of Septimus the Younger and Legate Costa. The external threat to the empire could now be made into a thing of the past. The difficult-to-hold frontier of the previous empire would not be repeated. Instead, there would simply be nothing beyond the border that could ever worry Rome. That is it for this episode, so thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making this all happen. So we'll be starting to simply deconstruct any places that might supply enemies for Rome in the next episode of Fields of Mars.